welcome back everyone to another Psych Reacts video. Today we will be jumping into the life of Ted Bundy before his crimes. We'll be studying his upbringing, how he became such a brutal killer, and what he did before he turned into this monster.
1971, Bundy got a part-time job at Seattle's Suicide Hotline Crisis Center.
What he's doing is he's performing the role of the respectable middle-class young man. He wants to be seen to be helping other people. He wants to be seen to be doing socially worthy things. And this also feeds into the work that he becomes involved in terms of political campaigning.
When Bundy graduated university, he joined the Republican governor's re-election campaign. Then, in September of 1973, Bundy was accepted into law school at the University of Puget Sound in Tacoma.
Now this is where it starts to get interesting. His former love, we'll just put it there, this girl Stephanie, he was going to marry, he wanted to marry. She rejected him because he wasn't ambitious enough. So Ted Bundy leaves, he drops out from learning Chinese and studying Chinese in school. And then he goes to learn psychology, and then he becomes a suicide hotline person, and then now he is working alongside the Republican governor to reinstate the political campaign. And then he was accepted into law school. Now, he's done all of this work to build his public figure, to build his self-worth, his social worth, and listen to what he does next.
Before beginning the law course, he went on a trip to California. Whilst there, he rekindled his relationship with his first love, Stephanie, despite still dating Elizabeth.
All of a sudden, he's a different man. He's working for the governor, he's talented, he's successful. He looks like he's good enough for her finally.
Ted Bundy and Stephanie get engaged and they plan to get married. And Stephanie's very excited about it. But Ted very coldly just drops her.
What this was all about was how far this man would go for revenge. To have the kind of narcissistic victory that it would not be her that rejected him, and then rejected her summarily.
He didn't want to live with the image of her rejecting him. So he went on this whole life journey to rebuild his social class, to rebuild his success, just to get revenge and be the one to dump Stephanie. He wanted to make her love him again, but not because he wanted to love her, but because he wanted to get back at her, saying, look at where I've come, I want this victory of I dumped you instead of you dumped me. So to him, in his mind, he won against Stephanie.
Having taken back control by ending the relationship with Stephanie, 27-year-old Ted Bundy returned to Washington and decided he needed to show womankind who was boss. Just after midnight on January the 4th, 1974, Bundy broke into the basement apartment of an 18-year-old dancer and university student.
She was at home asleep in her house one night when Ted Bundy broke in and he beat her with a metal pole and he raped her and she was in a really terrible state. Many people think this is something that just kind of came out of the blue, but I would say absolutely not, it didn't. I think this was an attack that was built up to. We often find with offenders there's some behaviour before they get to the point of raping and attacking people. And in Ted Bundy's case, this was voyeurism. So he had a history of peeping through women's windows and watching them get undressed. It's something that gradually builds and it's not enough for him and he ratchets it up to the next level.
Voyeurism is, like she said, peeping into people's windows. He would watch women get undressed, and eventually that became not enough for his fulfillment. So then he had to take it up to the next level. This is kind of what I mentioned with, I believe it was Jeffrey Dahmer, with the killings being like a drug. So the first kill, they reach that ultimate high. They get the taste of what killing is like for them. However, when they keep doing it, they don't reach that same high. So then they have to come back, twist the situations, try to think of different ways to change what they're doing to re-fulfill that excitement. And we'll see that here in Ted Bundy's case.
Seattle, Washington, February 1974. It was here that 27-year-old Ted Bundy attacked again and turned from rapist to killer.
It's no coincidence that she's a university student who he sees as privileged, who he sees as undeserving, whereas he's somebody who's really hard done by. And it is that constant jealousy, that constant underlying feeling of shame that drives a lot of his violence.
Bundy's chosen target was a 21-year-old University of Washington student called Linda. He broke into her room.
He very severely attacks her. He really does bash her skull when he carries out the assault on her. She doesn't survive the attack.
That night, after he'd attacked and killed Linda, Bundy moved her away from the campus. He dumped her body in the dense woods of Taylor Mountain Forest, a 30-minute drive from the university.
It's very important that he maintains control over the victims, even after he's killed them. So he doesn't just leave them where they are. He wants to be able to know where they are. He wants to have control over them. So he chooses a local beauty spot, Taylor Mountain. It's a place that people generally go to enjoy.
So I believe that the whole idea of wanting to control his victims, even after death, comes from the fact that he wasn't able to control his upbringing. He wasn't able to control his parents. He wasn't able to control what social class they were. And I feel like wanting to control his victims stems from the idea that he wants control over everything. He wants power over everything. So he wants to feel like he has something over his victims.
After 8 aggravated murders of young women in the first half of 1974, a rate of more than one a month, fear spread across the Pacific Northwest.
I think Ted Bundy enjoys the feelings of power. He enjoys the feelings of control. So you start to see the attacks get closer together because he's having to escalate his offending to get that same feeling of power. We know with psychopaths like Ted Bundy, they're prone to boredom, so they will start to mix it up a bit and offend in different ways.
Then in the summer of
So that's what I was mentioning earlier. They start to adapt to the certain way that they're killing, and then eventually it becomes not enough for them. So they have to spice it up, they have to escalate, they have to maybe take 2 victims this time, they maybe have to use their hands instead of an object. Like, they change these things because the old method becomes boring, it becomes stale. So they change it up to receive that same type of excitement during these killings.
Of that year, Bundy changed his MO. He now decided to attack in broad daylight. On July the 14th at Lake Sammamish State Park, just over 15 miles southeast of the University of Washington, Bundy attacked 2 young women, 23-year-old Janice and 19-year-old Denise. Denise was last seen entering a public restroom in the park.
There are some witnesses to these crimes, and there's one common denominator, and that seems to be a man called Ted who drives a VW Beetle. So that begins to narrow the field a little.
Bundy later said that he kidnapped both women from the state park within a few hours of each other. He raped them and made one watch as he murdered the other. Bundy disposed of their bodies in an area 2 miles away.
So before, he would kill at night. He would hunt at night, he would break into buildings, and he would kill in the dark. But once that became too stale, too boring for him, he decided, all right, let's take it up a notch. Let's get a little bit riskier. So he went to a public place with a lot of people around, tons of witnesses. So he went from at night, no witnesses, private places, to broad daylight, tons of people, tons of witnesses, and 2 people at that. So he basically upped the difficulty in his killings, which made it more risky and more exciting for Ted Bundy. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap off this first episode here. If you did watch and enjoy the Ted Bundy intro, the start to Ted Bundy, how Ted Bundy became a monster, be sure to drop a like down below. I truly appreciate all the support. Also, I really hope this video is not blocked. But If you are not already, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you know when I upload another video. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Anything you would like to see me react to relating to Ted Bundy. We're going to be diving into Ted Bundy, his last interviews, his interview tapes, his confession tapes, his trials, and so much more. So if you're interested in that, once again, be sure to hit that subscribe button. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I truly appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Peace!